Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our third Let's Talk About webinar. I'm Siobhan Smith, Lead for Diversity and Inclusion at KTN, and it's my honour to introduce our host for today's webinar, Sherry Kutu. Sherry is a serial entrepreneur and angel investor who serves on the boards of companies, charities, and universities. She chairs or has chaired Founders for Schools, Work Founder, Raspberry Pi, Trading, Digital Boost, and the Scale Up Institute. She also serves as a non-executive director of Pearson PLC, London Stock Exchange PLC, DCMS, and a trustee of Raspberry Pi Foundation. Philanthropically, she supports Founders for Schools, the Prince's Trust, and the Crick Institute. Sherry has an MBA from Harvard and has been awarded honorary PhDs from the University of Bristol, Manchester University, and the Open University for her work in education and the economy. She was also appointed Commander of the Order of the British Empire for services to entrepreneurship in the New Year's Honours List in 2013. And today, Sherry, alongside our panelists, will be discussing why it is important to inspire future generations. So over to you, Sherry.
Thanks, Siobhan. I'm super excited to be here with Pearl, Becky, and Kirsty talking about these really, really important issues that are near and dear to every citizen's heart. These are the issues of our time, and I'm delighted to be talking about them with an amazing audience. With the amazing audience who I don't yet know, but again with these panelists. So I'm gonna start by introducing Pearl Jarrett. Pearl is an award-winning disruptive change maker, and she's also the founder and group CEO of the Jarrett Foundation. She went to the University of Hull, and I can see that she's had 62 endorsements for leadership on her LinkedIn profile, and 39 for management, which is pretty extraordinary. So again, well, awesome, well done on that. And I just sort of thinking about some of the things that she's done before we go into here. In 2015, you were diagnosed with cancer. And then after winning that fight, you drew up a bucket list of all the things that you ever wanted to do, but that you talked yourself out of, or you'd allowed others to talk you out of. So we are going to probably chat a little bit about that. But after that, you've been given your second chance. This is your opportunity to change the world. You packed up, you went to Gambia, Africa, and since then you've been going down through that list, which is very exciting to me. And I'd like to know what is next on your list. I'm excited about your Solar for Schools Caribbean. And I'm also pleased to know that you, in addition to all of these other things, that you're a wife, having been married to your best friend for 31 years, and that you're a mother of 3. I'm also a mother of 3, so we've got that in common. I'm next going to turn to Kirsty. Kirsty went to Queen's University Belfast and the University of Glasgow. She's got a PhD in materials. Now, I'm interested in that because my daughter is doing her material science degree right now as well, or following in your footsteps, I guess you could say. So as I was reading your profile, I was thinking, I wonder if Stephanie's going to be doing some of those things. You've also got I can see that you've got an extra certification from CMI, and I think that extra certifications after we've got our degrees is also interesting for us to think about as we explore, sort of skills and talent. I know that you promote research and capability because you've got a EPSRC responsibility. So I thought we could explore, in addition to day jobs, how you continue our own learning and how we learn from doing extracurricular stuff. And I know that you've done, again, you're working with KTN, Photonics Scotland, Institute of Physics, and again, you're doing a lot of very interesting, good things in volunteering. So I'd kind of like to explore maybe with you how we grow through volunteering in addition to whatever we choose to be our day job. I think it's interesting for all of us to think about that. It's certainly been an important part of my life. And then third, we've got Becky Sage, who is a founder and host at the Mindstarting Podcast. Very interesting background. You also got your PhD from the University of Bristol, but yours was a real one. Well, not a real one. Mine was an honorary one. I didn't have to work that hard. Well, anyway, I think you worked harder and longer at your one. And again, I really was trying, it was mind-boggling. I think, well, what exactly is laser ablation, plasma, and mass spectrometry? And, maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, but it sounded very complex subjects. I can also see that you're a budgie at the Terence Higgins Trust, and kudos to you for that. I think that, and I also really enjoyed reading some of the recommendations that you've got in your LinkedIn profile from your coach. I thought it was interesting that your coach had made postings, and again, just talking about how you offer insights and you're very good on accountability and sort of following your true north. So very, love to hear more from all of you. I think the other thing we share is you're a Maserati 100 Innovator of the Year, and a gymnast, and an ambassador for Move GB. So you also seem to have, I think the thing that we have in common, or all of us have in common, is lots of extracurricular things. So anybody who thinks that one job is enough is just clearly incorrect when it comes to this group of panelists here. So, and I think that it would be good for us to explore those issues, and no doubt that's why you've been asked here today. So we are going to talk about inspiring future generations. And I think I've been asked to sort of just say a couple of things about what that means to me before we get into the questions. And you mentioned, Siobhan, in the introduction, my extracurricular activities have definitely had me exploring this for quite a long time. Founders for Schools is something that I set up, and it was all about getting role models into schools, but role models from innovation, the world of innovation, role models from the world of founders and entrepreneurship. And we've also strayed from that into teacher training, because we came to understand how much teachers needed to be trained and mentored themselves, because every day they are asked about the future of work. And given that the future of work is slightly unclear, teachers actually need a support from their own communities and how they upskill themselves. So Founders for Schools is a really important part of my life, and we've been doing that for a long time. In Scotland, where 50% of the children age 6 to 18 in Scotland have met entrepreneurial role models in their classrooms because their teachers are using Founders for Schools, which is really exciting to me. We haven't quite got there in England or Wales, not that percentage of the population, but clearly we would love to do that. And it's been an honor getting that together. We've been working a lot on Maths for Girls, which is aimed not necessarily at teachers or that spectrum, but really focusing on 11 to 14-year-old girls, and bringing role models to them who use maths every day in a variety of different industry segments. And we've been doing, I think, quite fun work in bringing to light, what do we actually do if we're an entrepreneur, into short videos, and experimenting with how to best get those in front of girls so that they understand that the foundation. We've targeted 11 to 14 because they are making their A-level decisions, and they're in their GCSEs, and they're making, in this country, irreversible decisions about their future. And in the world of innovation and entrepreneurship, as I don't think I need to explain to you guys, a foundation of that is maths. So we're trying to help teachers by amassing a huge amount of studies, a huge amount of materials, and a huge amount of examples of what would you do with maths if you went into it. And I think we're having some good progress there. On 16 to 24-year-old people, I do some work with Workfinder, and that's getting work experience for young people, but not work experience at, nothing wrong with Tesco's or Morrison's, but it's not work experience at Tesco's or Morrison's, at work experience at companies like the ones you guys are running, and the ones that Innovate UK are creating. And I truly believe that as part of your education, as part of your degree, and actually I'd even say part of your A-levels, you should be having work experience, and it should be with innovative companies like the ones that we run. So do quite a lot of that with Workfinder. It's and again, it's available nationwide, and enjoy that. had a bit of a wobble because of can you actually learn anything on work experience if you're not at a workplace? Can you do stuff? Can you learn stuff? When you're not making it on somebody else's premises? Well, I think before, remotely delivered work experience, everybody said couldn't be done, doesn't exist. But we all know, having all been working remotely for the last 6, 7, 8 months, you can actually get work done remotely. It doesn't feel that comfortable, but you can do it. So again, that's been pretty hairy the last 6 months, but interesting. Raspberry Pi, which I've been with since they started, we do a lot with education and computing. And there's 2 things in particular. We do, I think, about 50,000 clubs in the UK that have 9 to 11-year-olds. There's code clubs and then coder dojos, where we are doing after schools clubs, and we're getting them to use small computers and to make things. And that we set that up particularly to make sure that the funnel of talent going into university was bigger and of a higher quality. And Raspberry Pi is just a joy to work with. We sell our kit in 86 different countries, and it's really, really fun. And then last but not least, Digital Boost is something that we put together in response to the COVID crisis. And it is boosting teachers and people who work at small companies and people who work in innovation, so that if they haven't upskilled themselves enough, they can get a digital boost from somebody who has already been boosted either by themselves or somebody else. So that's kind of sort of some of the things that I've been, my extracurricular activities around education and skills and talent, and it's all around this area. So let's turn now to our panelists. I wanted to talk about and all of us are working in schools. So what are the challenges facing young people in innovation? And I am going to start with Kirsty, because you've been a STEM ambassador for 6 years and 10 months, according to your LinkedIn profile. So I wanted to start with you. And then I know that Becky and Pearl are also going to have something to say with that. But just if you could start with a provocation on that response.
Yes, thanks very much for that introduction, Sherry. I'm really excited to be here. A very well accredited panel, it seems. So lovely to be here today. 6 years and 10 months, that seems like quite a long time, doesn't it? I don't quite feel that old, but yeah. So the challenges facing young people in innovation today, I think that I do quite a lot of work with children in schools, 11 to 14, the same sort of age that you're talking about, Sherry, when they're starting to make their decisions, especially young women. It's a really pivotal point in a lot of young women's lives. They're starting to make decisions about, if they're choosing to study science and further education, and maybe, have a lot of buy-in from teachers and parents. And there's a lot of boys choosing science, and that's a whole other kettle of fish, I guess. But I think the main point I wanted to draw upon was, I think non-formal learning from students is really, really important. So augmenting, as you were saying, the learning that students get from teachers in the classroom, that non-formal learning, going into classrooms and doing hands-on activities that make sense for both boys, girls, and diverse groups is really important, and it enhances their creativity, their innovation, through their experimental nature, participating in activities. And I think that is an approach that not all young people are. It's not available to all young people.
So are young people not being so the question is about the challenges facing young people. Is it that they aren't given enough opportunities to do stuff around innovation?
I think that the drive from industry, from business right now, is that they want our young people to be equipped with the entrepreneurial skills for the future. They want them to have the critical thinking skills, the analytical skills, problem solving skills. And I'm not sure that historically we have set up a system to enable students to be able to learn those skills in school to then transition into employment, especially when I was a student. Through all of your initiatives.
Yeah, sorry, I know that we've got a lot of questions and not a little bit of time, so let's try to be pithy answers, because I'd also love to invite Becky and Burl, that didn't come out right, Becky and Burl to comment. So we'll come back on that, but I wanted to allow others as well. So who wants to, I just saw you guffaw, Pearl, so why don't I invite you to sort of comment on, do you agree with Kirsty that is the main challenge facing young people in innovation? Or is it something else from your point of view?
Well, it certainly does include all of what Kirsty said, but I would add to that as well that sometimes it's the perception, opportunities, which affects their mindsets, because some things, innovation, okay, there are some occupations, some industries that are not screaming, girls, come and join me. You know, they're not screaming that. So you have to understand, these young people have to, with everything that's going on around them, and they're at this stage where, you know, they're growing up and turning into young people and everything else. There's a lot going on, but at the same time, they've got to be really strong and say, well, this is what I want to do, and this is the path that I want to go down. And I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was that age. So, you know, to stand
do you know what you want to do now?
Oh, I do now.
Okay.
It's taken a while. So I really applaud young people when they at that age and they say, I want to be an innovator, or I want to go into science, or I want to do this. I'm like, go you know, and then you really just have to nurture that and then show them role models in this area and point them in the right direction and connect them and all these kinds of things, so that they don't then think, well, I've looked at that and I don't see any girls, so I'm just going to kind of let that go. No, okay. No, you can do this, you know, and just encourage them to keep moving.
Okay, great. And then does your view differ? Because I know your foundation works with children and schools in Africa and here. Yeah. Is your answer to that question changed in any way when you put your experience from another country on into your glasses that you view it through?
Short answer to that is no. Okay, so anywhere you go, you're gonna have young people will see whatever they see in front of them, then they'll think, well, I'll just be that because everybody else is being that, so I'll just be that. And when I was at school, everybody at my age and my culture were either going to be secretaries or nurses. So then I piped up one day and said, well, I'm going to be an actor. Well, you can just imagine everybody fell about laughing, because as far as they were concerned, acting is not a real job. So, you know, you've got to be able to see something and to be able to see it and say, well, actually, I'm going to see past what I see in front of me. And I can be that innovator, but that takes a lot of strength, and or at least somebody that's pushing you in that direction, who is your cheerleader, saying, yes, you can, go for it. And it's those people who break through.
Brilliant, thank you, Becky. I'll turn to you now. What are the challenges that you see facing young people in innovation, particularly?
So. First of all, I wanted to reflect back to Kirsty. I've been a STEM ambassador for 16 years, so don't feel too old if you've been a STEM ambassador for 6 years. So I really think the big challenge, and this is something we hear through this Women in Innovation program all the time, if you can see it, you can be it. Right. Now, by the nature of what innovation is, you can't see it. Mm-hmm. It's innovating, it's changing. Whatever these young people are going to be innovating on, that thing, you know, it might be similar to something else, but it doesn't exist yet. That's the whole nature of innovation. So I think that it really, you know, some of the things Pearl just said about how we encourage, how we engage, and things Kirsty was saying about this combination of skills, these combination of interests that come together. And I think if we can really encourage those things and focus on curiosity and people being driven by the things that are important to them and the changes that they want to see, whilst they're building up, you know, the academic skills and like you said, the maths and the other skills that sit behind that.
sorry, I'm talking about solutions now rather than challenges, but I think that's a lot of what the challenges are, is how do we make those things happen? How do we make sure we're getting this really good patchwork of skills and experiences that we're developing? And how do we see those role models or see that future that we're trying to create for ourselves?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to hand a question about challenges to a panel full of entrepreneurs, because we don't see challenges, we just see solutions to the challenges. So, completely. I like I think the cheerleaders are particularly important. And Pearl, in your introduction, you'd said that you had, until you had cancer, you allowed, and you'd put your bucket list on hold. Mm-hmm. And you hadn't allowed yourself or given your permission to do it. And I think that communities have a really important role to play in feeding the dreams and the aspirations of young people. So again, there is a seeing it. If you can't see it, you can't be it. Completely agree. Innovation harder to see it, mm-hmm. but us holding someone's hand and saying, do you know you could do that. Mm-hmm. You could totally do that. You got that one cracked. I think it's a really important thing for us to think about in our communities. Have we encouraged enough people this week, today, enough young people to think about how they actually are innovators and how we need them to be innovators? So I'm going to turn. So the next thing is I'll sort of turn over to how do we all work to engage with young people in our communities? And Becky, you've just said you've been being a STEM ambassador for 16 years, so I might just start with you on that one, because you don't look old enough to be. Did you start it when you were 3 or something? But
I've got a good light on me right now.
The light is good. But anyway, now talk a little bit about how, and I know you're doing some other stuff as well, but talk about what you do, and also what do you get out of doing what you do? Because it's not just, again, it's a two-way street. People benefit from these activities.
Yeah, it's changed a lot over time for me, actually, but there's always something that I'm doing that is about engaging with young people and engaging with schools. And I think a lot of that for me comes from the fact that both my parents and a lot of adults around me were teachers. So even when I was, if I had an inset day from school, I was going into schools and listening to other, the younger children read and things like that. So it came very naturally to me. And then when I was doing my PhD, I did a lot in terms of science outreach and really threw myself into that. And then the company that I've been running for the last 6 years, Interactive Scientific, that's all about digital tools that help us to engage students in science. So with that, we're in and out of the classroom all the time, really engaging and talking to students. And then, as you mentioned in the intro, I'm a gymnast as well. So gymnastics coaching is another way I engage with young people. And I think a lot of it is about being out there, being in the community. And as you said, however we build those relationships, once we've got those relationships, we can be the cheerleaders and we can be the role models, and we can tell the stories about our own lives and the lives of the people around us. So it's changed for me over time. I have worked with Founders for Schools, so it's been great to go in and be an entrepreneur through Founders for Schools and have that as a platform that means I can reach even more students. So there's so many different ways that I've done it. And the other thing is I'm a governor at a school now, and I've actually become link governor for a number of different things. But in particular, I've been working with their equality and diversity group, and that's been brilliant as well. Working with the young people who really, they're ready to make a lot of changes and to be able to engage with them a bit further than you might normally do when you're a governor of a school.
Yeah. Fantastic. So that equality group, that is a group of students, and you're a governor representative on it or something like that?
Yeah, there's a couple of staff leads who, are more down there on the ground, more day to day, but really all the activity is led by the students. So more than anything else, my role is to try and make sure that as governors, as leaders of the school, that we're getting out of their way and letting them really drive things forward, or of course keeping them safe and within boundaries as they're doing it. But yeah, more than anything else, that's how I see it, is how do we encourage them to do more and roll out the initiatives they want to roll out.
Great, thank you. Kirsty, I'm going to next turn to you. How do you work with and engage young people in your community? I guess in addition to your STEMnet, and maybe, I don't know if you're doing Founders for Schools as well, but if you're not doing it yet, maybe you will. But how are you doing that? And why do you do that? Why do you make time for that?
Yeah, I think like Becky, my activity ebbs and flows, and I've gone through a really weird transition recently from moving from being the PhD student in the lab, sort of being encouraged to take part in all of these outreach activities and getting involved in schools very gratefully, because they were my sanity throughout my PhD and actually developed me into the person I am today through all of those things outside of the lab. Now I'm in a position where I have responsibility for a cohort of other PhD students coming below me. So now I'm in a position where I am being the advocate to say, look at all these amazing things that I got involved in as a PhD student, and think about all of these other skills that develop you as the well-rounded person that industry, business, further education, academia, wherever it might be, is looking for. And actually coming through so strongly right now is that I think we need to engage with all women. I don't want to talk about this pipeline because it always comes up, but it does, right? So encouraging the next generation of PhD students and those women and girls who are kind of on that bridge, maybe just finishing their undergraduate, master's, postgraduates, to then take on the baton, to then cheerlead, the women and girls coming below them, I think is really important. So they're now learning sort of how to devise and develop initiatives to get young people excited off of what they're doing, and how to teach really complex, sometimes science initiatives differently to girls and boys, because they have different ways of learning. So it's really interesting picking up on how they are then delivering activities to those young people. So it's kind of a weird mash of doing outreach myself, but then also trying to say, look, it is a lot of time. Yes, you're maybe called upon to be that cheerleader and that advocate and take on that extra little bit of workload, but it is for the altruistic greater good, and look at the return of profits that are very real, that come from businesses pulling together diverse groups. The diverse group at the table brings profits. And so I hope that that's what we're moving towards.
Great, thank you. So Pearl, I'm interested to hear how and what you're doing to engage with the young people in your community as well.
So I'm of that age where I'm a real mama. I'm a mama's mama. So it really started, my children, I have 3 children, and a lot of my children's friends have grown up in my house.
Yeah.
And they've come around and they've seen us doing this, and they've seen us working on this and working on that, and they will come up with some other idea and this. So they were always intrigued. How come your parents are always doing something? They're always, and then they get you involved, and they were like, oh, how, can we come around to your house? Can we get involved? And particularly, we encouraged them to come, particularly if they were going off the rails, and in the process of being excluded or something, we were like, please do come. So it was kind of mentoring. But over the years, the amount of people that passed through our house that have gone on to do businesses, and some of them have created drinks and clothing companies, and I've helped one to just start her advertising agency, and now she's booking people for commercials on television and all kind of stuff. And they ring me up and they go, so everybody calls me Mama Pearl or Auntie, or something like that. Auntie, but how do I do this? Okay, come around. Let's talk about it. Let's look at it. And I work on them with business plans, and I connect them. I say, well, have you looked at this? Have you considered this? And I just love it. I just love it, because to see people flourish, to go from I'm going to get kicked out of school to now I'm running my own business and I'm employing people, that for me is just like, oh, yay. So to be a cheerleader, for me, just brings me the greatest joy to see what could have been and to see what is now. I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I get up.
Well, I think that's fantastic, because I think as a role model to every single mom out there, knowing that even if they're not a STEM ambassador for 6 years or 16 years, we all have a role in our community, and be it cheerleading or encouraging or reaching out and being accessible. I think the common theme for all of that is you make yourself accessible one way or the other every single day, and we should never miss it. We should never miss a trick on that. And I think Pearl, you articulated nicely about why it's important to you to do it as well. But you did start out with saying that you're a mama, which is good. But I just wanted to pick up on the juxtaposition with Kirsty, who's at a younger stage of her career. And the question is, why is it important that role models are relatable and inspirational? So I think you may have, as a role model, Pearl, just inspired every other mother there with teenage kids to think, oh, I can do that, which is brilliant. And Kirsty, the same goes for you. We try to get matches at Founders for Schools with the younger the better, because the less, well, just again, at a blunt object, the less age difference, the better. So you, as you're doing a PhD, reaching out to kids who are in A levels and below is actually pretty important, because you're not so many steps forward that some people who maybe don't have that encouragement at home can't imagine what that would be like. So I think that, whoever we are a role model. Even if, if my 17-year-old son is a role model to somebody who's, sort of 15, and that 15 to somebody who's 13. And we should really think hard about that. And if we're thinking about that, sometimes we may act differently if we realize that we are being a role model. And some people who aren't, some people who are role models who don't think about it should clean up their act, actually. Try not to be grumpy about it. I'm not saying you guys, but my mind just went to the United States. I'm Canadian, but my mind went to the US just briefly. It's come back now. Apologies for that. So tell me about, just in terms of being relatable, how do you, when you're mentoring, when you're making yourself accessible, how do you make yourself relatable? So I'm going to start with, I guess maybe Kirsty. You have some pretty tricky, complex subjects here. So to somebody who doesn't have, material science PhD, how do you make that accessible to somebody who's 12 and a girl and maybe doesn't even know what those things are? And I'm going to come to you next, Becky, for that as well. So if they don't yet know that they're going to do, that they don't, it's absolutely have no idea that they could have a PhD. How do you start them down that road? Because I do think it's super important. I was the first person who went to university in my family. They absolutely did not encourage me to go to university. It's like, well, we don't do that. That's not what we do. So how do you, if you're in a family like mine, growing up, Lumbertown in, Canada, or some village here where neither parent went, how do we get to those folks? I think it's critical. That is an amazing role that schools have, and friends have to sort of lift people out of, family situations where you haven't been there. But what do you do? How do you do that? How do you, make yourself accessible? Because I think I can't even really pronounce the stuff that you got PhDs in. What do you do?
That's a great question. I think, first of all, just being there as a woman who has gone through many painful years, or great years, sometimes people, in science, just being there, being in the room and saying, look at me, I'm young relatively, I'm a woman, and I'm in science. And none of my family went to university. My mom was a home carer, but she was always my cheerleader. She was always saying, if you want to do science, Kirsty, you go and do it. Even if it's all the boys in your class, you go and do it, because you can. And when I would come home and tell her all the stories about, you know, the speed, how I've figured out what the speed of light is in relation to X, Y, and Z, and giving her all this stuff, she'd be like, that's really fascinating. Even if it wasn't, you know, it was super fascinating to her. So I think, one, just being there for young girls to say, look at me, I've done it, you can do it too. Two, being personable and getting rid of all of the extra fluffy stuff around about job titles, around just making things really simple and saying, here's a problem that's happening in the world right now. The thing I work on is, you know, how do we make sure that your smartphones have more storage in them, so you can take more videos of, you know, your favorite concert. How do we do that? And we give them real problems that make sense to the world today and relate it to their daily life, and be really mindful of the audience that you have, and the way that you engage with boys is slightly different to the way that you engage with girls. You know, boys like to build a bridge across a table that's like the biggest and the best and the baddest with the most, you know, slings and pulleys, and they don't care why they're doing it. But maybe girls need to know, you know, well, why am I doing this? Am I doing it because I want the bridge to carry a heavier load? Or, you know, do I want a community at this side of the bridge to be able to transfer, you know, a crop across the bridge to increase their profits? And, you know, so they sort of approach things as a why am I doing this? So I think it's important to relate to the people that you are inspiring. I also think, on the same notion, we've all picked upon the word inspirational. It's a big word, right? Nobody really thinks of themselves as inspirational. But I really think you don't need to be a Stephen Hawking or Brian Cox for young children to feel like you're an inspiration to them. A teacher, a lecturer, anyone on this panel today is inspirational. So just increasing those points of contact, and like I said, increasing the out of classroom learning and all of those bits that kids get to touch upon, where they realize that failing is okay. They realize that there's a place for science in them, and failure is fine, and they get to, you know, try new things.
Great. Thank you. So Becky, as a master storyteller, I suspect that you're going to, again, sort of not disagree with anything that Kirsty said, but love to hear how you, again, how do you tell your stories and make yourself accessible, so that you shine a path for somebody that, you know, really is in a different place.
Yeah. And actually, to that point about shining a path, I kind of pull out this statement whenever anyone asks me for a quote, which is about the brighter your light shines, the more you can light the way for everybody else. And I think that that's something really nice for us all. You know, I know this audience is made up of a lot of people who are founding companies, and you might feel like you're an early stage, but you're not. You're working hard, you're out there, you're doing things, you're solving problems. So, you know, if you can make that light shine brighter, don't think about doing it for you. It's not about your ego. It's not about, you know, putting yourself out there. Not that that's necessarily a problem, but think about it for all those people who will get to see something that, you know, those young people who wouldn't have got to see it before. And this idea about being inspirational and relatable, I just think it's really key. And for me, the first time I'd really heard it was when I'd started the Mindstarting podcast, and in that we tell stories of entrepreneurs, mostly focusing on female entrepreneurs and the journeys they've been through. And we kept getting feedback, which was, oh, these guests are really inspirational and relatable. And I think, so that was all about telling, you know, personable stories. And to Kirsty's point on that as well, which is, it's about being able to be human. And we don't necessarily connect around the what, you know, like people won't necessarily connect with me around laser ablation of the mass spectrum. I can't even say my own PhD thesis title. It's too far away. Mass spectrometric analysis of laser ablation blooms. People don't connect to me around that, right? That's not what people are coming to talk to me about it. But and I would go even further actually with the young people, which is go to where they are. What are you interested in? What are the problems that you think we need to solve together? What, you know, how do we need to change things? And science is a process. You know, if we're talking about science is a process we can go through to explore further and figure out how we solve these problems. Entrepreneurship is a way that we can really, you know, get into the making solutions for those problems. So really thinking about it from that point of view and going to where they are. So yeah, that's a couple of ways in which we do it. I should also say, I did a PhD because I didn't think I could. So it's also interesting to see who's out there. You know, when I was 12, 13, 14, there was no way. You have to do original research. That sounds impossible. How would I ever do that? But I was going to do it, and I was going to be the only girl in the physics class, and I was going to, you know, so there's different types of people that we engage, that we will want to engage with, and we'll want to lift up in different ways, and they'll probably need different skills development as well.
Great. Great. So Pearl, I'm now going to come to you, and I'm looking at some of the things. So first of all, there was something quite exciting that happened in the last week. Do you identify with Kamala Harris and her story at all? Do you? I mean, I think that all of our hearts might have done a little jump of joy this week. And you know, does it change? You know, did you feel joyous when you saw her, you know, sort of get her new gig? Well, we think we've got our new gig. That's not been confirmed yet. But what did you think about that as a role model for others? I was
clapping, shouting at the screen, brought out the wine. I mean, I was just a happy camper, because I just thought, number one, you've got the first woman ever to be the vice president of, like, you know, arguably the most important, the most influential country in the world. But then not only that, she is the first woman of color. And I'm just thinking, wowee, you know, look at that, you know, and that's incredible. That we often talk about the glass ceiling, that we, you know, always hitting this glass ceiling, and to penetrate that glass ceiling, you know, especially in a country where they are so divided, and in terms of all things racial, it, you know, it's you know, there's no middle ground. It's either you're here or you're here, and to get the votes to put you in that position, go you know, and that it just shows me that we can do anything. I mean, absolutely anything. And I tell the young people that I work with all the time, just because you haven't seen it done doesn't mean it can't be done.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it can't be done just because nobody's done it before. It's never been done until somebody does it. So why not you? Why not you? Why not me? Do you know what I mean? It's just like, you know, oh, but nobody's ever done. Will you be the first one?
Absolutely. I think that I agree. And I think that it will have changed many people's sort of perceptions. Now, whether or not you should be a politician or an astrophysicist, and which is the most attractive career, is a good question for us to think about. But tell me a little bit about your producer, playwright, and you do his stage, film, and all sorts of other things. So that's quite interesting. And, you know, that it was a role model. You know, there may be many people who think, well, maybe maybe I can't do ablation stuff, but maybe I can do some of these other things. But again, I think the role models that we have around this table today are amazing. But talk a little bit about that, because you've got a very diverse portfolio of, activities, and would therefore be pretty awesome role model in all sorts of ways. But talk a little bit about that, and how did you come into doing that? It's, you know, it's different.
So 2005, I got diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
And then it was the fight of my life. And then so I won.
Yay!
Whoop, whoop, whoop. So I won. And then I thought to myself, I am not going to go back to business as usual. I've been given a second chance, so I'm going to live my life. And I'm not going to take no for an answer. I'm going to dig deep and find out all the things inside of me. See, this is my thing, Sherry. I think there are lots and lots and lots of things buried inside of you. And unless you decide to dig for them and find them, and then you dig and you go, oh, look at that. And I find that we spend most of our time talking ourselves out of things. And you think, well, I can't do that because of this, and I can't do that because of that. But I think, and I tell people, anything that really bugs you, that is a clue for something that you have the ability to fix. Because I can look at something and go, oh, that's a shame, and go back to my food, you know, and then you look at that and you think, that's a disgrace. Somebody should do something about it. That thing there, that's what you can fix, because you've got the passion to do it. And it might not be what you've studied. It might be something else. So what I've done, I've looked at all the things that I just think, that's a bit rubbish. Why doesn't somebody do something about that? And then I do it. And I think to myself, oh, I wanted to be an actor. And I remember my dad talked me out of it because he said, Pearl, that's not a real job. So now I'm big, I'm a grown woman, I can go be an actor and I don't need to ask anybody's permission. So I've literally, since my cancer journey, just thought about all the crazy stuff. If I could do anything, what would I do? And I'd come up with these things and then I just do it. And I would not accept any excuses from myself for not doing it. And if I thought, if I'm going to tell you about it and you're going to talk me out of it, I'm just not going to tell you. So I was going to drama school, I'll tell you this real quick. I was going to drama school 2 days a week for about 6 months. And my kids thought I was having an affair, because I would disappear for 2 days a week and not tell them where I was going, because I didn't want them to talk me out of being an actor. And then when I finally told them on Christmas Day, they were like, oh my God, I thought you were leaving. No. And then I got my first advert, and then I was the face of NatWest. And I was the face of NatWest for a year. And then they were like, every time we went somewhere and it came, and they were like, yeah, that's my mum. That's my mum. If I told them about it, they would have talked me out of it. And I thought, I'm not having it.
I absolutely love that. And again, I think we spoke earlier about cheerleading as well. And I think was one of those reluctant people as well. People told me I could do stuff that I absolutely had told myself I could not do.
There you go.
And again, I'm going to turn to Becky. Becky, what have you talked yourself out of so far? Or has anybody ever talked you into doing something that you hadn't initiated yourself? Or, you know, are you a person that people shine a light and you go, oh, I could do that? Or are you talking yourself out of things? Or are you talking yourself into things? Which side of that?
A bit of both, actually. So it's interesting. Yeah, I mentioned just now, I think doing the PhD was partly because I thought I couldn't do it and didn't necessarily have those role models around me. And yeah, I was like, no, I can do this. Having said that, that path was still somewhat laid out. You know, you go A-levels, undergrad, PhD. So it's definitely harder when the path is not laid out. And for me, it's interesting thinking about health and wellness. I've got an autoimmune condition, which makes things really hard. And that combined with some mental health struggles that I had and a bit of a toxic working situation I ended up in, meant that I kind of had to turn things around and make the choice to turn things around and talk myself into things and really listen to what is it that matters to you. I love what Pearl said is about those, you know, when I get that bugbear inside of me, that's something for me to respond to. That's something for me to work on. And I definitely, I'm there with you, Pearl. And I say that I'm definitely better at bigging up other people and supporting other people than I am myself. I have the doubts coming in like so many people do. And of course, I think it is important to recognize that we are in sectors where, you know, when I say sectors, in science, in business, especially kind of when we're looking at trying to get investment and that type of thing, where we do have things working against us. And I think sometimes it's good to not just go in blind to those things. I think sometimes it's good to be aware and to find your affinity group and find the people around you who will be your cheerleaders. And that's the thing that will lift you up, because actually as a female entrepreneur, or, you know, any entrepreneurs coming from underrepresented backgrounds or with different challenges, you are going to have a different pathway through. And so finding your support system, finding the people who make you feel good about it, and recognizing, as Pearl said, I mean, and I would probably go even further than just the people who are going to talk you out of something, but, you know, there are saboteurs out there as well. get rid of them. Get you know, like those. Yeah, you do not need them. Get your group of people who are going to lift you up, because we don't really have time in this world to solve the problems that need to be solved if we're all spending half our time feeling bad about ourselves and feeling like we can't do something.
Becky, can I just say that what you've just said, you know, and the struggles that you've had with your health and everything else, this is the kind of stuff that women need to hear. Young people, older women, everything, because we use these things, as I said before, to talk ourselves out of it because we think they're reasons. This is a reason why I can't do it. Well, actually, they're excuses.
Yeah.
Because you can do anything, even with a health issue. You know, even whether it's mental or it's in your body or anything else, you can find the right person to say, you know, we can do this together. You know,
exactly. And
I love the bit when you say, look, just the people who will talk you out of it, get rid of them. I have deleted, I've walked away, put on mute. Anybody who I think I'm going to tell you what I'm doing, you're going to go, you don't even have to talk. If you start with that, delete. Because as far as I'm concerned, I want the people around me. If I say I'm going to be an astronaut, they go astronaut.
Because we're good enough at tearing ourselves down, right? We've
right.
got, there's enough things tearing us down.
This is so good. So, Kirsty, have you deleted anybody recently because you've been a naysayer?
I would like to say, Sherry, but I totally agree that I am my own worst enemy. I am my worst critic. If I do not do well at something, it is me. It's my fault, and I'm a terrible, terrible person. And the amount of times, and I'm sure it's the same with all you folks on the panel, that I have looked at a job description and looked at all of the things and said, oh, that's not for me. That's not for me. I don't fit in there. I'm not bold or brave or entrepreneurial or innovative enough. I won't fit in there. And the amount of times I've sat back and thought, do you know what? That is absolutely ridiculous, because you could be, and why don't you just give it a go? Because if you don't do anything, then you're going to get no result. But if you just do it, it might work out and you might meet great people and it might be great. So just
the next time you think that, I want you to call me. I want to give you my number, baby girl, and I need you to call me, and we're going to have that talk, and then you're going to go for it.
Yeah, you pep me up.
You have to be in it to win it. So what? You know,
we all need a pearl, I think.
There are people who are sitting down going, and it's the one that goes, do you know what? I'm going to do this.
Yeah,
they're the ones that get through.
I've got a question. Have you? Are we all? Do we plan? Let's just talk a little bit about planning versus serendipity. And I never had a plan for my career. It's probably a good thing that I didn't. But is it any sense these days planning anything? Because the world is changing so fast. And should we just go with the flow and allow our tribes to point us in a direction of a problem we can solve? And Pearl, I love that. If it bugs you, well, go fix it, and get a team around you to go fix that thing and channel that negative energy. Because, you can complain about something, or you can work with others to co-create with others the world you want to live in. And that's definitely the world I want to live in. But is there any need to plan at all anymore? Why would we do that? Or do we just get our sisters and aunts, sort of sisters and friends around us and say, right, what problem are we going to solve today? But how do we just think about that? And Becky, you look like you're jumping off your seat. So
yeah, I've thought about this quite a lot. This comes up on our podcast. This kind of thing comes up quite a lot. So and to a few of the points you were making there. So I think it's good to have a North Star, but know that North Star might change along the way and be ready for it to change. Exactly. So that kind of can help you sometimes, especially if you are having those tired days or you have let some of those kind of more negative things seep in. It gives you that motivation, it gives you that reason, and it helps you to say no to things. I don't know about the rest of you, but I can be very good at saying yes to things. And if you've got a North Star, then actually you kind of go, does this play into this kind of broad direction of travel? 100%. I think, COVID and lockdown and all the uncertainty that's come around that has really highlighted that, we never know what's going to happen, but we all know, we're all entrepreneurs sitting around this table. uncertainty is there all the time, you know, just because this was a major thing that's impacted all of us in some ways in a similar way. It doesn't mean that we're not always playing with uncertainty. So I also love what you said, what kind of, that's the sentiment that's coming through with everyone as well, getting people around you. And one of our recent guests, Jaya Chakrabarti, she really talks about your value networks and you know, how are your values. So rather than it being about a plan, and you know, maybe thinking about what are my values and how are my behaviors matching my values, and how are the people around me playing into those values, and can you create your value network? And I really love that idea. And so it's kind of not so much about planning. I would say, again, from the point of view of somebody who's got an autoimmune thing, and I have to do things with how to balance my activity and to make sure I'm sustainable and I can maintain my health. Structuring and kind of planning for the days is sometimes quite helpful. Like, when do you work best? When are you most creative? When are you best in front of other people? When do you need time to recharge? When do you want to be with your family or doing sport? So kind of having certain structures that it sometimes works better for you to do certain things in the morning, for example, or certain things in the evening. So it's more of a kind of
mornings are bad. I think mornings should be banned, actually. I just want to turn, and I'm sort of conscious of time. So just the last question, and then we'll do a wrap up. If you're speaking to girls in school right now, or to teachers, what should teachers in schools do to engage young people in the lives that you guys live? The entrepreneurial life, we are all advocates for it. We love it. It has empowered us to think that we are changing the world and we can change the world. How do we get that hope into every heart and mind of every child everywhere? And how do we help teachers get that energy and that hope into people's minds? I'm going to start with you, Kirsty. We've got very little time, so be pithy, sort of 30 to 45 seconds, and then we're going to time out.
Okay. Failure is okay. Network. Get to know everybody you can. Say yes to everything when you're as young as you can and have as much time as you can, and just build your support network from the ground up.
Great. Okay, cool. Becky, you're next. What do we do to get that into hearts and minds of kids in school right now?
Well, I would say teachers, listen to the Mindstarting podcast so you can get lots of different stories from different entrepreneurs, and then you've got more experience of what that looks like for your students, and just really nurture their curiosity, allow them to follow their curiosity. Fantastic.
Pearl? Pearls of wisdom. I'm trying not to put puns about pearls of wisdom, but I couldn't stop.
I'll be very brief. Just to say that, you know, there are the kids. Everybody's got a superpower. Everybody's got something that they're passionate about that they can use to be transformative. Everybody has that superpower, and if you can plug in to that superpower in each one of those children, they could change the world. You don't know who you have in your class. They just have to be plugged into the right thing. And you need to bring people like us to come into the schools to talk to them so that we can help to draw it out. Because, you know, then you could be one of the people on the news 10, 20 years ago. Yeah, I taught her. She was in my class. They go back and find the teacher. You could be that teacher.
Absolutely. You could be you could leader of the free world, who knows, or anything else. Okay, that is wonderful. Thank you. So just in wrapping up, role models are really important, regardless of country. If you can't see it, you can't be it. It's really important, particularly with girls, to be their cheerleaders and to shine lights down paths that they may not have imagined. And the most important one, the one that I get most excited about, is if it bugs it, you go fix it. Get your tribe to go fix it with you, because it's just an opportunity to make the world a better place. So go for it. Boom. Thank you very much, ladies. It's been an honor and a privilege chatting with you. I've had a riot, and I hope that's what you have had too.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, girls. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all, and thank you so much for hosting today's webinar, Sherry, and to all of our fantastic panelists, Pale, Becky and Kirsty, for sharing your thoughts and experiences with us. If you'd like to get involved and inspire future generations yourself, one way in which you can do this is through the partnership between Women in Innovation and Founders for Schools. Sherry mentioned what Founders for Schools does earlier, but by connecting the inspirational women who are part of our Women in Innovation community with their local schools, we can raise the aspirations of innovators of tomorrow and build a talent pipeline for the future. Details of the opportunity are available on the Women in Innovation program page. We'll also circulate them on the YouTube video and on the follow-up emails to all the delegates that registered. I'd like to thank everyone who's joined us online today. Our next Let's Talk About webinar is taking place on the 2nd of December, where Sonia Barlow, founder of Like-Minded Females, will be joined by some more fantastic panelists to talk about meeting the right people. And we hope you can join us at that time. As part of the Women in Innovation program, we are also holding a webinar on the 17th of November focused on connecting majority-owned women's businesses into global corporate supply chains. So if you're available and can join us for that one, please do so as well. If you'd like to keep up to date with all the Women in Innovation news events, please sign up to our newsletter or visit our program page or join our LinkedIn group. And once again, I'd like to express a massive thank you to Sherry Kutu for hosting the wonderful session today, and to our fantastic panelists, and to you for joining us. I hope to see you again next time. Goodbye, everyone.